A very good morning, everybody. I am CA Sakshi Ladia, and on behalf of Affluence Advisory Private Limited, I welcome you all to today's session on simplifying preparation of Form GSTR 9 and GSTR 9C. Annual GST reporting continues to be one of the most important compliance responsibilities for businesses. GSTR 9 and 9C require accurate aggregation of data, clear reconciliations, and precise reporting. Our panelists will walk you through the practical aspects, challenges, and methods that will help you streamline this process. And of course, we'll wrap up with a live Q&A, so feel free to drop your questions in the chat box anytime during the session. The questions can be in English or Hindi as per your convenience. We shall also accommodate ourselves in both English and Hindi for the ease of communication for all those present here. Before we move ahead, I would like to give a brief introduction to Affluence Advisory Private Limited. Affluence Advisory, an ISO 9001 certified multidisciplinary private limited company, has been offering integrated advisory support for over 2 decades now. Our team of chartered accountants, company secretaries, corporate lawyers, and other seasoned professionals is focused on delivering comprehensive solutions in a dynamic and regulatory environment. Now, it gives me immense pleasure to introduce our expert panelists for the day. We have with us CA Krita Lodha as our first panelist. Krita is a chartered accountant with over 10 years of experience in indirect taxation. She spent 7 years at Deloitte before establishing her independent consulting practice. She has handled complex GST and pre-GST advisory, compliance, indirect tax health checks for large conglomerates, and litigation across multiple industries, including logistics, retail, hospitality, automotive, shipping, EPC, and more. She is an active speaker at various professional forums, including the WIRC. Next, we have with us CA Akash Sarda. Akash is a chartered accountant with over 10 years of experience in indirect taxation. He previously worked with Deloitte's indirect tax team for 5 years and currently leads the indirect tax practice at Affluence Advisory Private Limited. He advises clients on a wide range of GST issues, litigation matters, and sector specific tax concerns, including real estate. He contributes regularly to GST events and conducts sessions at ICI for young professionals. We are privileged to have you both of us with us today. Your experience and insights will help simplify the complexities of GSTR 9 and GSTR 9C. With that, I invite Mr. Akash to begin the session with his expert knowledge on the subject.
Thank you, Sakshi, and good morning, everyone. I welcome you all for this session. So, as we understand now, GST is a self-assessment based tax. So, on monthly basis, we report our outward supply transactions, we compute our tax liabilities, avail ITC, and accordingly make the tax payment of taxes. So, any error or omission if we happen to make during these filings cannot be rectified since there is no window for revision of GST returns. And therefore, what we have as an option or a final window to correctly report our transactions is GSTR 9, an annual return where we can correctly report all the transactions, sales transactions, our ITCs, and the tax payments. So coming to the background for GSTR 9, so it arises from section 44, which provides for filing of GSTR 9 and read with rule 80, which the time limit, the due date to file the GSTR 9 is 31st December. As we all know, the threshold limit continues to remain unchanged, which is 2 crores. The notification which is issued every year for the same, which provides exemption from filing annual return if the turnover is below 2 crore. There was some confusion around the turnover limit, which says that for any year, if the threshold is below 2 crore, the GSTR 9 is exempt. But again, that any year has to be read equivalence for the year 2024-25 onwards, as mentioned in the notification. Therefore, in case where the turnover for 24-25 crosses 2 crores, the GSTR 9 becomes applicable. And GSTR 9C, which is a reconciliation statement, earlier it was part of section 35, that is books of accounts and all. Now it has been moved to section 44 itself, where a reconciliation statement is to be prepared and filed. Again, the threshold limit remain unchanged, that is 5 crore for GSTR 9C. And again, this is also to be filed before on or before 31st December of the following financial year. Now, as we all know that GSTN 9 is a tedious task, it is quite cumbersome. We can, for an precautionary measure, we can have few certain details ready with us in form of consolidated GSTR1, consolidated GSTR3B, table 8A, then HSN summary, which is readily available on portal, and certain these details readily handy with us. Validate these details, since from these details only our GSTN 9 is auto-populated. Now I would request Krita to take over and take us through the outward supply reporting in GSTR 9C, 9, sorry, GSTR 9, and let's have a discussion on the same.
Thank you, Sakshi. Thank you, Akash, for this session. So, as Akash rightly mentioned, GST annual compliance is a very tedious compliance, because I think this is the only annual compliance which happens at a transaction level. So this becomes indeed a tedious task. But here we are all here to discuss few simplification measures of how we can simplify this task, and at the same time add value to the business by adopting corrective measures and implementing future best practices, so that year on year we are able to streamline our practices and able to compile this data on a very better basis in the coming years. The very first step of simplification is to rely on the correct base data. When I say correct base data, is complete audited financials, because many times we get queries from our team members itself when they ask that should we rely on GST annual monthly returns as the base for preparing GSTR 9, or we rely on the financials. Actually, the answer to this is, though GSTR 9 is an auto population from monthly returns filed, but when we do this annual compliance, our base has to be the audited financial numbers. At the same time, many times to navigate through the deadlines and multiple due dates that we have month on month basis, clients generally approach the team saying that you can start the GST annual compilation work by the time financials are being finalized. Here again, it is suggested to keep things simple. We should only start this audit once financials are freezed, because it becomes then again a cumbersome task to give effect to audit adjustment entries, and entire reconciliation goes for a toss, even if there is one change in the entire audited data. So first step of simplification, as you're saying, is we have to rely on the correct base data. When we say this, the most recommended way, the suggested way to get this data is the audited financials. Start with the audited financials. It compile all the revenue ledgers that goes and that totals up to your revenue from operations and other income in the financials, and that document level listing becomes the start point, the very start point for doing this annual compliance. Secondly, as correctly mentioned by Akash, this is entire form 99C is an auto populated form in the portal. So what is our role here? It becomes to verify all these auto populated details. The source of this auto population is our monthly compliance, and as Akash mentioned, there is no scope for revision in GST returns. So there could be errors and omissions in monthly compliances which could not be rectified or were not even noticed for that matter during the year, and hence were not rectified. So this annual compliance again becomes the only chance where company has the opportunity to report accurate details, and hence this becomes another road to assessments, to easy assessments becomes, because during assessments also authorities rely on disclosures made in GSTR 9, even if where clients have presented that there were errors, omissions in monthly compliance, but everything got corrected in GSTR 9. So that paved way for an easy, or maybe say smoother assessment. So again, this becomes another important thing. Now when we say what are the steps in simplification, is again when we start with our financial data, the whole reconciliation has to be done on a document level. We have seen many teams who do this review on a totality basis. So again, that may not that may remain, that where teaming and leading errors remain unchecked, or that may escape your scrutiny. So one way to do this in a better way is get it get the entire reconciliation done at document level. When we say document level, it becomes a compilation of GL data for the entire financials in a single file, where this GL data should be again complete in all respect, where it has the data point from date of invoice to invoice number to customer details, the name, the GSTN number, the taxable value, even the HSN code and the rate of GST applied for a particular supply, and at the same time the taxes applied on the transaction. Now when this base data is a complete data, this will also help, not only help in preparing our GSTR 9, which is mainly table 4 and table 5, but also help in preparing the HSN summary of GSTR 9 and rate-wise summary, which is required for GSTR 9C reporting. So once we have a correct base file in hand, it serves multiple purposes when we do this entire compliance. So let's start with table 4. So GSTR, so this is broadly how a table 4 looks like in GSTR 9. So it has all the supplies are divided into various categories. B2C is separately reportable. B2B, SEZ supplies. SEZ supplies on payment of tax. Exports on payment of tax are separate. Deemed exports are separately reportable. Advances, reverse charge, and credit note, debit note in respect of these supplies. This year, if we see, the form is auto-populated, but deemed exports are clubbed with B2B supplies. So one thing, this is, I think, a manual activity which teams will have to do based on this financial data that we'll have in hand. We'll have to segregate B2B supplies into B2B and deemed exports, because that is getting clubbed in the auto-populated data. So this is one thing. Second, advances. Often there is a confusion around reporting of advances. So advances only which are unadjusted. So company may have received an advance, may have adjusted a part of the advance during the year itself. So only what remains unadjusted at the end of the year goes in table F. And this table actually even accepts negative reporting. Even this is a confusion where many practitioners or many of the persons doing this annual compliance have this question, that if table F accepts negative reporting. Yes, it accepts negative reporting. Then now coming to the way we have to do this is, once we have the financials data at hand, we should actually at the same time, so we have two parallel reports in hand now. One is our financials, one is GSTR 1 data. So as Akash rightly mentioned at the start, that we should have our GSTR 1 data in hand, the annual GSTR 1 data, again, which is at a document level. So that GSTR 1 data, one more thing that we should add to this GSTR 1 annual data is GSTR 1 data of April 25 to October 25 should be kept handy, because even this reporting, this data will have few reportings of the previous year. So when we will do a reconciliation with financials, and if certain documents are reported in next financial year, that will also get reconciled. Then what remains at the end will be the transactions which may either not have GST applicability or which may have missed reporting in the monthly compliances. So once we have both these data population at hand, one suggested way to do this reconciliation in a very simplified form is tag each of your line items in the financials data that we have compiled into each of these categories. So if it's a B2C, so from GSTN table, from the GSTN filter, if we filter blanks, we get a B2C supplies, all the levels of B2C supplies. All those can be tagged as B2C supplies. We can have a B2B tagging. At the same time, we can have tagging for exports, SEZ with payment, without payment, as may be applicable, and deemed exports separately. So once these entire financial data point is tagged into relevant categories, and if we prepare a summary of these this financial data, if everything went well in a very ideal scenario, each of the numbers will tally with the auto-populated data in table 4. If there are any transactions which could be missed or the other way around, we'll have differences. Another important thing is this year, if we see the instructions, GSTR 9 And in fact, it has been always the case where GSTR 9, we have to only capture the transactions of current year. So when we have extracted our GSTR 1 for the entire financial year, April 24 to March 25, between April to October 24, there could be transactions of financial year 23-24, which would have been reported in this financial year. So we have to specifically exclude those transactions when we compile GSTR 9. That's very important, because otherwise, again, that becomes a point for reconciliation. And in actuality also, when we see the instructions, it says this is GSTR 9 annual return for the financial year. So if only transactions for the financial year goes into this return, not the previous year transactions. Another important thing is amendments. This is again a very tedious thing where GSTR 1 auto-populated data, this 9 data will have your amendments also auto-populated. But when we do this annual compliances, because books will have only the original transaction recorded, while R1 data will have amendments also in the same. It will have original transaction, which will have some error in it, and the same would have been corrected by way of an amendment. So R1 data, when it is compiled, it may have 2 data points for the same document number. So one way is, if accurate information is available at hand, amendments can be reported separately. Else, instructions still allow reporting B2B or respective supplies net of amendments. So companies can take benefit of that if compiling amendment is not possible practically. One is on amendments. Then once we have compiled this data, uh, what is to be done is, often financials, the GL data, when we are downloading it, will each invoice, and one invoice having multiple line items, multiple rates, multiple HSN codes, it will come in multiple lines. But when we have to reconcile this with your GSTR 1 filing, which is one document, a consolidated value is reported in R1, not at rate level. So what we'll have to do is, for the financial data, we'll have to first prepare an invoice-wise pivot of that entire financial database. Otherwise, we will not be able to retally that the same with GSTR 1. The recommended function that can be used to do this tally is a VLOOKUP function, and that has to be reverse VLOOKUP as well. So once we do on the financial data, if we run a VLOOKUP from R1, we'll get a population of transactions which are there in financials, which are matched with R1, and there could be few transactions which remain in the non-reconciled category. At the same time, we should do a reverse VLOOKUP as well. Against the R1 transaction, we should do a reverse VLOOKUP with financials data as well, because one way we have often seen that there are few expenses which are accounted in R1 on which companies do pay GST, but from a financials point of view, that will not go in revenue from operations, but that could get credited to your expense side of the P&L. So that will not come in our revenue GLs. So to identify those kind of adjustments, a reverse VLOOKUP will help us. Once this 2 data points are done, and we get a almost say 99% of the population will be in the matched category between both the data points. Now what remains is our adjustment entries in the financials. What will not go in R1 could be your provision entries, could be your trade discounts, could be even any other journal entries, reversing journal entries. So for those line items, then it's a scrutiny at document level, which a person will have to do it. So once that is done, even those line items can be tagged in a way that our 9C, now 9C, if we see, there is a turnover reconciliation which has reporting separately for provision entries, opening closing provision entries, and the trade discount and credit notes, which are not under GST. So if we do this activity of document level check, we even are able to find those adjustment entries at document level. If we go on a totality level, it again creates a problem, because during assessments, officers nowadays ask for document level data, from which document this data is flowing. So that helps. Another step is that when we are doing this exercise, it is serving a dual purpose, that we are future ready for our assessments as well, and we have a transaction level information that can be presented, instead of finding this information at a later date when asked for. So this helps us in a way. Next important thing when we come to table 5 of GSTR 9. So in table 5, if we will see, we have exports without payment of tax, all the exports and SEZ supplies. Then there is one on nil rated and exempt supplies, and no non-GST supplies. So exempt, specifically we should report those which are exempt under GST where the rate is 0. Nil rated and exempted can be clubbed as per instruction. It is allowed to be clubbed. Non-GST supplies will be ones which are specifically not under GST, like say out and out exports, for example, which is not covered under the GST law itself. That becomes a non-GST supply for reporting purpose, because these transactions do form a part of revenue in the financials. Again, instructions are allowing here in table 5 as well to report these transactions net of amendments, so that helps. Next is coming back to table 4. Table 4 has so this was more on the revenue side of it. In table 4 we have one more reporting here is for reverse charge liability. So reverse charge liability is something we'll have to compile from our Excel expense database, where all company has a reverse charge liability, and that has to be compiled and reported in this table. So the total liability that goes in table 4n, if when we report at various levels, this data point from 4n is captured and reported in table 9 of GSTR 9, where it is that is a tally between the total liability of the company with total taxes paid. And in this year, in GSTR form 9, they have just added that functionality where table 9 auto calculates the difference between the liability, that any which ways everyone was doing as a checkpoint that my liability should match my payments. This year 9, the form itself is calculating that difference. So the moment we have a say positive difference where my payment my liability reduced by all the payments and there is a positive number remaining, that means there is some additional liability to be paid. There could be negative amount in this table if any liability of previous year is reported during the year. So that to that extent my liability, negative liability, will stand in GSTR 9, and that will help us in substantiating even during assessments that in this current year there are the transactions of previous year on which liability was paid, and hence there is a negative number in GSTR 9 at the end. So that helps in substantiating as well. When we have compiled this financials data in a way and we have checked with GSTR 1, we have even identified transactions for reporting in table 10 and 11, which is mainly containing details of current year's transactions which are reported in the next financial year. Now, next financial year, it allows from April 25 till October 25. So everyone has filed their October 25 returns, presuming. So all these transactions become a part of reporting in table 10 and table 11. And the entire liability, which is table 4n, and including liability addition reductions reported in table 10 and 11, becomes the net liability of the company. Now this net liability should reconcile with our GST payable GLs. So one way to check on is we can check the GST payable GLs in the financials, where my total liability should be matching with these numbers. Another important checkpoint. So when we say revenue GLs, see, normally SAP systems or ERP systems are designed in a way that any transaction hitting a revenue GL, GST commands are actually built in. But our focus during annual compliance, so we presume that most of the transactions in the revenue GL, wherever GST applicability has to trigger in, would have been done. But as a value addition during this annual compliance, we should focus more on other income GLs also, and the JE entries, normally the journal entries where miscellaneous income journals where transactions are otherwise passed through journal entries. So there could be transactions here in these GLs which could have escaped GST. There could be an applicability, but the point this transaction was entered into the financial systems, the person did not know that this transaction attracts GST. So a very close scrutiny of other incomes should be done. For example, in other incomes, many times company has written off creditors written off or provisions written off. So if it's a write-off of a provision, that doesn't attract GST. But if it's a creditor written off, that may trigger ITC reversal, because that emanates from a rule that GST ITC is available only once we have made payment to vendors. Ideally, this reversal triggers within 180 days time, but in practice, for all practical purposes, if we see, many organizations do not follow that 180-day reversal. But at the end of say 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, when we actually write off the creditor itself, that means that we are never going to pay this vendor, and hence ITC, if any, which was taken when we had availed any goods or services from that vendor, should be reversed. Even during audits, authorities are looking into these kind of transactions very closely. So till here, now coming to next is on table 9. So table 9, as we discussed, becomes a totality of your liability check. And if we see in the last column, they have just added the differential figures, which will get auto-populated in this table. Now, this table also includes your RCM liability. Not only the forward charge liability, it includes even RCM liability over here. Even late fee is getting auto-computed here. Interest and late fee paid during the year gets auto-populated in this table. So this was more about GSTR 9. There are any other, so at the same time, so once we have done with these base groundwork of the entire data, one review what should be done is we should spend a time on reviewing the financials. From the financials, we should even see the impact of GST on any related party transactions, corporate guarantees issued by the company. In the last year, we have seen some circular coming in where valuation has been recommended for corporate guarantees also. Corporate guarantees have been always taxable, but they have just brought in a circular to clarify the manner of valuing that service. So a close review of financials will give us a chance to even look at transactions which may not be in the overall data points, but yes, there will be related party transactions at free of cost, but GST does require to value it and pay GST on the same. So that will help us, and it is giving us an opportunity to revisit the positions adopted by the company and take corrective actions for the future. So when we do this transaction level check, it helps us revisit the positions we have taken on our revenues, various revenue streams. At the same, another important thing here is rate of outward supply. Many times when we are doing compilations, we rely on the rate which is there in the system itself. But when we use this summary and prepare the HSN summary, it is a very important data point, because during the year, there will be some change in rate on a particular goods or a service. So that review should be done, that did the company adopt the correct rate of tax? Was the change in rate of tax implemented from the correct date? Because otherwise that will give to liabilities in the future again, when assessments are done, because rate change has to be implemented from the notified date. If that couldn't be notified in, and if there are any additional liabilities arising because of that change in rate, that should be paid right away during this annual compliance, and even taxes should be reported accordingly, and we can limit our interest exposure with this additional check. Generally this gets skipped, because it's a presumption that the item masters would be correct, the rate applied would be correct. We have seen many organizations where rates have been changed, but the changes are not implemented in due time in the systems, and for that particular time span, the supplies were made at the old rate, and then there are additional liabilities triggering from a assessment point of view. So this helps us, this entire exercise will help us revisit and recheck our positions adopted in a very detailed manner. So from here, I'll take a pause here. If there is any specific question that could be coming in, or are we on everyone is on the same page?
Rita, I think I've got a couple of questions which we all come across on day-to-day basis, or something which may probably pop up when we start preparing GST 9. One of them is the important change which came up during the year was implementation of IMS. So for any reason, if I reported a credit note which has my customer has rejected by inadvertently, or maybe he didn't receive the credit note, he has rejected, my liability again adds up to that extent. In that case, what action point or how should I report the same in GSTR 9? If you can just please throw some light
Yes.
on it.
For 24-25, if we see, yes, this is a very relevant change. Though, yes, IMS has been brought into the system, and it's, I think, continuously evolving. This entire system is continuously evolving with portal changes at the back end on a continuous level. If we see, IMS got implemented in the month of October 24. In the month of November, for November returns which were filed, there could be situations, and many companies initially and people were not clear of how to handle IMS rejections. So what happened every time is a supplier reporting a credit note into his R1. A customer rejects that credit note in the IMS system. So directly that liability gets added to my GSTR 3B return, because that rejection happens on the 14th. So once I have filed my R1 on the 11th, the customer rejects that liability, say on the 14th or the 15th of the month, that gets added to my GSTR 3B liability. Now that gets the difference that is created is a credit note of reported in the December month. When it is rejected in the IMS system, it adds to my liability in the month of January. It will reflect in my January 3B return, and that creates a difference. To handle that in GSTR 9, one suggestive action is, because the supplier has not reduced its liability by because that credit note was rejected, and actually that liability got paid through GSTR 3B. So in net effect, that liability never got adjusted. GST never got adjusted. So that credit note should now be reported as a commercial credit note for the purpose of annual reconciliation, which goes in table 5 of GSTR 9C as an adjustment to turnover. If it were a GST credit note, it would have reported in table 4 itself. But because this got rejected in IMS and liability never got adjusted, all these credit notes can be treated as commercial credit notes for this annual reconciliation purpose. Only one thing should be kept in mind, that credit notes of March, if they are rejected, the liability gets added in the month of April. It is not that the effect is coming in the month of March itself, because that liability is added in the month of April and also discharged in the month of April. So for that population of data, for those GSTR credit notes of March, that should be reported in table 10 as addition to liability, which is reported in next financial year, because that did not get adjusted during the same financial year. March liability is getting adjusted in April. So that month's credit note should go in the table 10, where it is liability of current year getting discharged in the next year. So that is there, and I think there are many more issues which teams will face when this because of this IMS system being implemented. And that again gives one more reason why a document level reconciliation is mandatory when we do this annual compliances.
So next question, Krita, which usually comes in mind is, so by any chance, if I happen to miss out any transaction being reported in GSTR 1 or 3B, and I realize when I do the transaction level reconciliation, as you mentioned, at the time of GSTR 9, how should I tackle the same or report the same in GSTR 9, and how the tax can be paid on the same?
Yeah, very good question, Akash. This is something which many companies do face, and that's the whole purpose of doing this compliance, that we are able to self-assess, as you correctly mentioned in the start. Also, this is a self-assessment based taxation system. So where we self-assess that we have missed few transactions in our monthly compliances. Yes, very well, companies can report that in GSTR 9, because many times people feel that because we have missed in R1, we cannot now report in 9. No, companies can report that in GSTR 9. That liability will reflect in table 4N and automatically flow to table 9 also, as we discussed. And the difference can be paid through DRC 03. And as per the advisories, DRC 03 allows you, when paying any tax through DRC 03, we can utilize ITC as well for making payment. So it's not only cash, we can utilize even our ITC, unless it's a reverse charge liability. So wherever DRC 03 is used to file any reverse charge liability, we recommend discharging the same through cash. But if it's a normal outward liability, I think credit ITC balances also can be utilized. But that will help us in reconciling my turnover as per GSTR 9 and financials both in a very smooth manner, because I am reporting all the balance transactions also in this 9 compliances.
Yes. The other thing which is there, that suppose if any transaction which I reported during the year, April to March 25, but I realized that there was some error which have happened, and on that I would like to amend the same during April to October 25. Maybe I have amended in this current financial year. So how should I report the same in GSTR 9?
So, if there are any amendments done in the next financial year, that has to be mandatorily reported through table 10 and 11 only. It cannot go in as a net off in table 4 here. Only reason being, liability is getting adjusted in the next financial year, and that actually will affect the compliances for the next year as well, because their liabilities reconciliation will arise. So, if we don't report that, it actually creates a hurdle in assessments where we are not able to justify my liability and the payments done in those cases. So that has to flow through table 10 and 11, the amended liability portion.
So I think just to follow up on this again, so we had even seen GSTR 1A being implemented in 24-25. So any amendment made during in GSTR 1 for a particular tax period, even that you would recommend should be reported in table 4 at the amendment side of it, that is for K or for L, or should we club it under a B2C or B2B only and give a net impact on that?
So clubbing is possible. Instructions do allow clubbing. So unless company has accurate details of amendments, and it's possible for all practical reasons, it's possible to do a gross level reporting, it should be done. Else clubbing is allowed as per the provisions. So that is doable.
So, okay, one last question from my side, Krita. So, while you mentioned that in case of RCM liability, we can validate the same through the expense ledgers, such as a professional fee like advocate fee, sponsorship, and all. Is there any also mechanism we should go and validate any income tax return or TDS forms to check any payments being made and there, and whether the same is being considered for RCM liability?
Yes, so I think when we review the financials often has a note on foreign currency incomes and expenses. So when we say foreign currency expenditure incurred by the company, that is another data point which can be looked at to ensure that correct RCM liability has been discharged on import of service as well. Because even that limits our interest exposure. That's a very big thing where reverse charge liability should be timely discharged, else there is a huge interest exposure for the company. In fact, for foreign currency payments, the reviewer or the person who is doing the annual compliance can even rely on the 15 CACB issued or obtained by the company, which gives details of nature of expenses incurred by the company and decide the RCM applicability on the same.
Thank you so much, Krita, for highlighting these points. And I think these are some issues which we face or we may face during our annual exercise. Okay, I think one more, probably one, if you want to throw some light on reporting, multi-level state reporting in case of 9C, you may consider the same.
Yeah. So, where companies have multiple GSTNs, in GSTR 9C, if we see the table is turnover as per audited financial statements. So, this top line, it is recommended that it should be a state level turnover and not the overall financial turnover, which is for the legal entity. Else, it will, else in table 5R, unreconciled turnover, there'll remain a huge gap. So, what is the recommended practices? Or the top line, we start with the state level turnover itself, and as an attachment to GSTR 9C, when we are attaching our financials over there, we can attach a common single sheet where we are doing our financial turnover, reconciling with all the states, revenue in all the states, which is bifurcated between all the states, and that helps during assessments also to justify the top line. And there is the difference remains also zero, because many a times when audits are selected on system basis, and if there are huge differences lying there in the unreconciled turnover, even system picks up audits, assessments. We can get, system generated assessment notice. So to avoid all that, we can just attach our turnover reconciliation statement where my financial turnover is reconciled and breaked for all the registrations, and then reporting is to be done on a state level basis. In fact, I've just seen many times in exports, there is another classic case where exports are actually CIF basis. But when we report in GSTR1, we report it at FOB value to match the shipping bill. Otherwise, it creates a hurdle for refunds. So now question comes at in GSTR9, how we report that export turnover here. So one way to do is report exports as it was done in GSTR1, so that difference is not created between returns and GSTR9, and the freight charges which we have otherwise collected from our clients on the CIF exports can be reported in table 5 of GSTR9C. There is a specific row which asks for adjustments on account of section 15, which says all other charges that a person recovers on the sales invoices to be added to the value of supply. In fact, in table 9C also we have category wise reporting for all the adjustments in turnover. So first suggested way to do is to report under specific adjustments under specific reasons itself. If that is not possible, instructions do allow to report everything in table 5O. So that is again for a very so only for those reasons where we can't split our reasons, or we don't have the reasons for that matter. But I'll tell you, and I've done it practically, that when we do this document level reconciliation for entire financial data, it helps in reporting in respective tables and also helps in justification. So we need not have any left amount or balancing figures in 5O. That is usually not recommended from a cleanliness perspective. If we say from a proper compliance perspective, 5O should not have any balancing figures. We should have appropriate reasons for each number that is going in 99C. So this is more about revenue. I hand over to you, Akash, for further part on input tax credit reporting in 99C, and how we can simplify that.
Yeah, thank you, Krita. And I think any question related to output supply can be put on the Q&A box, and we can take up the same upon completion of the ITC part, right? So you guys may please keep putting your questions there. I'll start with the ITC part. Now, table 6. So there are a few changes being made in this table 6 for 24-25. So let us go through all the tables one by one. Now 6A starts with, so that is again ITC auto-populated from our GSTR 3B. That is the total gross credit availed during the year, coming from our table 4A5. That is includes all your ITC related to import of goods, services, RCM credit, and all other eligible ITC. All of the credit which is coming from 4A5. Now the new addition which has happened during the year is table 6A1, which says ITC of any preceding financial year availed in the current financial year, that is 24-25. So any credit of 23-24 which has been availed during April to October or 24-25, the same will have to be separately reported here. Here, one more thing to notice. So in case of any credit which was reversed on account of Rule 37, so 37 as Krita also highlighted, it pertains to non-payment of consideration to the vendors within 180 days. And non-consideration, again, it's a full payment or a part payment towards the value of supply and the tax amount. And 37A talks about where the vendor has filed or supplier has filed GSTR1 but have missed out filing GSTR 3B. In that case, you will have to reverse the ITC before 30th November. Such reversals, and again, once the tax payment is made to supplier or the supplier has filed 3B, and when the ITC can be reclaimed, such ITCs will not come over here, even if it pertains to 23-24. That will have to be separately reported under table 6H, which is a reclaim table. Apart from this, if there is any other reversal other than 37 or 37A for the period 23-24 or 23-24, which has been again reclaimed in 24-25, such reclaim credits can be mentioned in table 6A1. Now, then the 6A2 table is nothing but your total credit which has flown from 3B. In that, we remove the credit pertaining to 23-24. The net credit which remains is for the current financial year 24-25. Now we start going and bifurcating this credit into respective category. The first category, table 6B, it talks about your regular forward charge credits on which ITC has been claimed during the year, we have to bifurcate this into essentially two categories. One is capital goods, which has to be compulsory shown separately. The other is input and input services can be clubbed together, and ITC can be reported under inputs head. That is the benefit which continues to remain since GSTR 9 was introduced from 2017. That benefit still continues. Only capital goods has to be reported separately. In table 6C, again, the RCM transactions or RCM liability pertain to unregistered availed from unregistered persons. The cases such as advocates or a commercial property taken on rent from a landlord who is unregistered. Again, the RCM liability was recently introduced in 24-25 on the same. Such kind of liabilities, credits on such liabilities can be reported as to be reported in table 6C. 6D talks about that inward supply received from registered person where RCM is applicable. Again, the example could be a sponsorship service where the sponsor is registered and he happened to mark sponsor service as a payable by the recipient. The recipient paying the RCM liability, pay the tax and avail credit and report under table 6D separately. The next column we have is table 6E, again import of goods, where the credit pertaining to import of goods has to be reported here. This year there's one more addition related to import of goods reporting credit, that is in table 8. We'll just have a look when we move on to table 8, how import of goods, credit related to import of goods is to be reported. Now coming to table 6F, 6F again credit pertaining to import of services, which we on a self-assessment basis we identified these were the imports made during the year and the tax has been paid on the same. Again, a validation can be made from our financials also or from our income tax returns or TDS returns, and a validation can be done there whether all the foreign payments are they tantamount to import of service and if GST is applicable on the same, whether the same has been correctly paid, and accordingly ITC can be availed on this. Next, 6G is ITC received from ISD. While ISD has become mandatory from 25-26, but if at all, if someone has taken ISD credit, the same can be reported in table 6G. 6H is a column which was even there in last year annual return GSTR 9, and it continues to be there in this return, but there's a slight change being made in this 6H table. So here one is the credit which is availed during the year 24-25 from April to March, reversed during the year because it did not match with 2B or the invoice was not received, therefore not accounted in books, and reclaimed during the year. Such reclaimed credit has to be shown separately in table 6H. Also, as I mentioned above, when we were discussing that credit pertaining to 23-24, so any reversal which was made pertaining to rule 37 or 37A and the credit has been reclaimed in 24-25 during April to October, such reclaimed credit on account of rule 37, 37A reversal will have to be shown in table 6H. Now in table I will see a total of B to H, that is B category wise forward charge credit, RCM credit, imports, and all of this credit will total up, and including the reclaim credit, the total will appear in I. And then J will have a difference of I minus a total bifurcation minus A2, that is the above credit which we took it for only for the current year. So ideally the difference would be 0 because all your 6A will have your reclaim credit also. So when you remove the reclaim credit from table 6H, automatically all differences will remain to be. The table J will have a 0 as a difference. The table K and L as such may not be relevant since Tran 1, Tran 1, 2 credit has already been taken care. The table 6M, earlier it used to be that any credit which cannot be reported in any of the above columns can be mentioned here. That leeway has gone now. Now ideally only credit which has been flowing through ITC 01 or 02, that is in case of an amalgamation, merger or an acquisition where credit has been transferred to the amalgamated or merged company through IT 02, that credit has to be separately shown here in table 6M. Right? And then again we have a table N, that is again a subtotal of K to M, that is a Tran 1, Tran 2 and ITC 02 credits. And lastly 02 60, which is total ITC avail, that is I. We have seen above I total of, that is subtotal of B to H plus the credit flowing through IT 02. The total will come over here. The next table is talks about the ITC reversal part. Now, while we reverse the ITC in our GSTR 3B under 4B, we have ideally two columns, 14B1, which is a compulsory reversal. So Rule 38 reversal, that is in case of NBFC, banking companies, financial institutions, and Rule 42-43 reversal, that is proportionate credit in proportion to exempt supply made during the year. So on 17.5, that is ineligible credits, which we show is being ideally reported in 3B. And then we 4B2, we have other credit reversal, which is for some reason it was there in 2B, the invoice transactions or invoices are there in 2B, but since it has not reached to our accounts team or not been accounted, that unmatched credit we can reverse temporarily under others column and can reclaim in the future period. So accordingly, here in table 7 of GSTR 9, there's a detailed bifurcation which is to be provided of the reversal in respective columns. So 37 reversal is there where payment has not been made to the vendor 180 days. Ideally, that should come over here. 37A, in case where the vendor or supplier has not filed GSTR 3B. So again, practically also it becomes little difficult to track whether supplier has filed his GSTR 3B or not. So one ideal way could be we download our consolidated GSTR 2A, which also has a column showing the status of 3B being filed by supplier or not. So that additional documentation or validation can be made from 2A rather than going and checking each and every supplier status, written filing status. So that measure can be taken because again, these issues are usually being picked up during GST audit by department where they already have data of suppliers who are non-compliant, who have not been filing the returns on time, and there they are alleging the reversal of ITC on such accounts. So if we have such validations in place and beforehand, we can very well take the same into account, reverse it appropriately, and reclaim as and when the supplier has filed the returns or as and when we have made the payment to the supplier. Next, Rule 38 reversal, as we saw, it was again NBFCs, financial institutions, and banking companies. They all report the 50% credit reversal here. 39, again, any credit reversal due to an ISD credit which has flown and there has been a credit note being issued for such credits. In that case, ISD credit can be reduced as per Rule 39. 42, 43, again, 42 is for input services. Credit which are common credits pertaining to an exempt supply. In corresponding to that exempt supply, that reversal has to be shown in the case of input services under 42. In case of capital goods, it has to be shown under Rule 43 reversal. Then we have 7E, which talks about 17.5, that is ineligible credits. So we have a list of items there, again from clause A to respective, including the personal expenses or personal benefit related or any loss or damage during the year, any construction related credits, and motor vehicle related credits. All such ineligible items should be identified and again validated on a consolidated level. If we happen to by any mistake have taken any ineligible credit, the same can be again be identified, checked, and reported here and shown in 17.5. Then Tran 1, Tran 2 as such won't be applicable. Then 7H1, that is other reversals. So again, other reversals nothing but our mismatch credit with our 2B, which we have during the year have reversed. So those credits will have to be, a reversal credit has to be shown over here. Ideally, this will come from our 4B2, but again, 4B2 we may have to segregate into two parts. One is 37, 37A reversals also goes there. And in the other part would be unmatched with 2B. So unmatched with 2B has to be separately identified and shown over this column. One suggestive measure here could be when it becomes actually difficult at consolidation level to find out in which month the credit has been availed in 3B and which month it was reflecting in 2B. A suggestive suggestion could be in our IT register, we can have two additional columns where in one column we can pick up the GSTR 3B month in which the credit was claimed. In the other column, that is 2B status, in which month the supplier has actually reported his GSTR 1. If we happen to take these two extra columns and provide information there, it can really help us in GSTR 9. Also can help clients who have been filing refunds in case of the export refunds or inventory duty refunds. That two extra columns will really help. And then total reversal in 7I. And after reducing from total credit of 6O and I, then we have net ITC available as 7J. The next table, that is table 8 of GSTR 9. Again, here we discuss the ITC pertaining to the avail during the year and the credit which we have taken in the subsequent year. So first, table 8A is ITC as per 2B, which is again an auto-populated number. So this year they have made again a change over here where even the invoices of 24-25, which by any reason are reflecting in 25-26, in case where supply has filed a late return, even those invoices will come over here. I mean, ITC pertaining to such invoices will automatically auto-populate over here. So 24-25 credit and 25-26 from April to October credit will automatically flow from 2B in this 8A column. Then interestingly in 8B, a change has been made where it earlier used to take 6B and 6H. 6H, which is nothing but your reclaim credit. This year they have removed that and they have only considered table 6B credits. That is nothing but our forward charge credits in 6B, where we have reported category wise, the forward charge credits taken on the input service and capital goods will only flow in 8B. So that is the add-on benefit or benefit this year we have. Where earlier last year till last year it was that 6H numbers were also flowing and creating a difference in this table 8D. Then coming to table 8C here again, so the credits which have been pertaining to 24-25 but have been availed in 25-26 in subsequent year, those credits will have to be reported in table 8C. One thing important to note here is, here in 8C there's a slight change, and 8C will talk along with table 13. Now 8C says only those credits which has been availed for the first time only should be reported in 8C. First time would mean if any supplier has filed a late return in of 24-25 in 25-26, say March 25 return was filed in April, and therefore it is coming in 2B of April, only that credit should be reported in 8C, and not the case where we have availed a credit, we have reversed since it was not matching with 2B and reclaimed in April to October. Such reclaimed credit only has to be reported in table 13 and not table 8C, which earlier until last year we always used to have a track or a validation that table 8C and table 13 go hand in hand. So this year we have a change in this. The only first time availment of credit which are availed in April to October 25-26 pertaining to 24-25 should only be reported, and anything to do with the reclaim credit of 24-25, that reclaim will have to be reported in table 13. Right? And then we have a 8D, which is nothing but your credit from 2B minus forward charge ITC and subsequent period credit, and then we have a difference in 8D. Ideally, this difference should be positive or a zero. It cannot be negative. Moment this goes negative, it will again trigger notices from department wherever they can come and claim that we have taken credit more than our eligible credit as per 2B. So a special validation or note should be taken off table 8D differences. Then we have 8E and F. Again, it is not compulsory to report whether any ITC has been available but not availed or available but ineligible. It is again an optional field to report this credit separately from the difference in table 8, positive difference in 8D. The new column which I was talking about in table 6 pertaining to import of goods is table 8G. It says IGST paid on import of goods made during the year. Now what happens is, say suppose there were certain bill of entries again which custom duty which includes IGST was paid in 24-25, but somehow that does not reflect, that did not reflect in 2B of 24-25, but it appeared in 25-26. In such cases, since taxes have been paid, IGST has been paid during the year, the total IGST payment on import of goods has to be reported here in table 8G. From that, table 8H, which will again auto-populate from our table 6E, where we have the credit related to import of goods, which is appearing in our 2B, will auto-populate over here. So we'll have again two parts. Just to repeat again. So we have paid custom duty on certain import transactions, but those in bill of entries are not appearing in 2B, and they are appearing in 2B of 25-26. So total taxes paid during the year on import of goods will come in 8G. Out of that, whatever credit has appeared on account of import of goods in 2B will auto-populate in 8H from table 6E. And whatever difference remains is the credit which will be availed in the next financial year. And then the table 8I will have a difference of G minus total credit minus H1, H and H1, which ideally would be 0. Then we have a table J, that is ITC available but not availed on import of goods. Ideally, again, if there was some credit which has not been availed, I believe there will not be any such credits. So this will remain 0. It is equal to again I. If there is no difference, this J will also not have any difference here. And rest the total 8K is ITC, which is to be lapsed in current financial year, if at all is there anything. Again, this is an auto-populated field number from about table, right? So that is from the ITC part. Now I'll just throw some light on ITC reporting in table 9C. Just take on the table 12 of 9C. So this is a table where we have to report the reconciliation of credit availed as per our books and as per our GST returns. So as per books would necessarily means our ITC registers. The credit as per IT register, so that again IT register will have credit of current year and of course credit of the previous year as well. That is 23-24 credit which has been for any reason booked in 24-25, and credit has been available in 24-25. So those credits, total credit will be there. But one suggestive measure here would be to exclude the credit pertaining to 23-24 here. Reason because of that we have a table separate in table GSTR 9 6A1, which we just now saw. If we are already separately reporting previous year credits there, we may not report in 12A, otherwise we may happen to have a difference in 12F, that is unreconciled figure. So that is one suggestion over here for 12A. And then 12B again will have blank. We can continue to make it as leave it as it is or make it as a zero. ITC booked in earlier financial year and claim current financial year, that is 23-24 credit booked in 24-25. 12C, yes, that credit which has been pertaining to current year but availed in the next year, that is ideally our table 13 can come over here. Reclaim credit or the first time old credit can come over here. And then table 8D will be plus and A plus B minus C of this about reporting. 12E will auto-populate from our annual return. Again, it will populate from our net ITC available after reducing the ITC reversals in table 7. The net credit will populate in 12E, and 12F would be anything if days remain unreconciled. So I think these are the important tables where we have ITC reporting.
Akash, just before you conclude, I had one question. Is it mandatory to report rule-wise reversal in GST in table 7, where there is reversal of ITC in GSTR 9? Because until now, I think clubbing was allowed.
Correct, Rita. So from this year, it has been advised and it has been instructed that we do report the rule-wise reversals so that it becomes easier for the officers also to validate these reversals. 40 to 43, we always had in our 3B return, 40 to 43 reversal. We could have reported only 37, 37 and 37A. These credits which we don't report separately in 3B can be shown over here. Because now going forward,
at the same time, there'll be many organizations. When I do these, annual returns compliances for many clients, I come across a situation where in the monthly returns there are barely any reversals done. Can I do reversal in GSTR 9 or GSTR 3B is the only form through which I can reverse any ITC? There'll be say a few items where I'm first time reversing my ITC. Could be a situation where company has missed on reversing ITC on damage, shrinkage, loss, in transit losses, and so on.
Absolutely, Krita. So while we do report our ITC reversal during the 3B, but by any chance if we happen to miss out to report any ITC reversal or do an ITC reversal during the year, and also would I like to highlight that even Rule 42-43 requires to do an year-end calculation to check whether the ITC reversal made during each month, is it matching with the final exempt turnover of that particular financial year. So even for that reason, if you happen to reverse less ITC or a shorter ITC due to a reason that you missed out to report under reversals, or 42-43 reversal was lesser being done on a month-on-month basis due to the ratio, and that ratio has changed at the end of the financial year, that extra reversal can be done and reported in table 7. And on this account, whatever additional liability is there, that we can show in our table 9, and that tax can be paid through ITC. Again, as you rightly mentioned, there's an advisory for this year. Any payment in GSTR 9 to DRC 03 can be also be paid through credit, not only from cash.
Yes, thank you. Good. I think Akash, yes, that's helpful. So I think we can open the session for Q&A.
Yes, I think I could see one question here. So I would request participants to put up the questions in the chat box or even in the comments section also.
We have one question, I think, from Rahul Taparia.
Yes, Sakshi, if you want to take that question.
I just read up the question. Any one of you can take that up. So the question is, if I reject both invoice and credit note in different month, can I do that, and what will be the repercussions or how to deal with it?
Okay, so I think this is more about IMS system that the question pertains to. So if we, so I'll just answer this from customers from the recipient side and the supplier side. So first, looking at the recipient, if a recipient is rejecting a invoice and credit note both, when invoice is rejected, that ITC will never flow to the GSTR 2B of that recipient because that's a rejected document. At the same time, if the customer or the recipient is rejecting a credit note, even that ITC will never flow to GSTR 2B to reduce his overall ITC, because that's again a rejected document. Coming to vendor side, the supplier's GSTR GST liability, when a customer rejects an invoice in IMS system, uh,
So credit
GSTR
card में
1
sir,
liability is not adjusted
I'm
to
just
that
going opening a
account
bank
to that
account.
extent
तो बैंक
in
account
the
में वो लेके
supplier's
आता है डेबिट कार्ड,
GSTR
क्रेडिट कार्ड
1 or 3B.
stuff and all, right?
Because when
तो
invoice,
उसके साथ तो
because there are
मुझे नहीं
reasons
लेते
when
थे, तो
if it's an
उसमें वो
ineligible
प्राइसिंग
credit,
वाइसिंग
so
कंपेयर
many
करके अपना
companies have adopted a position to reject the invoice itself, so that that ITC is not taken. It's a blocked ITC, but that will not change the liability of the supplier. Supplier has already paid tax on that invoice. The but there is a reverse situation in IMS, where if a credit note is reversed by the recipient, the liability gets added to the supplier's liability in R1. The whole reason for doing this is, a supplier, as we see the amended provisions of the act, a supplier is allowed to reduce his liability only when corresponding ITC is reduced by the recipient. So to implement this, and to ensure that ITC is also reduced by recipient, and rejection often means that recipient is not reducing his ITC, and hence even supplier is not allowed to reduce his liability on that credit note. And as we discussed, that credit note will now be treated as a commercial credit note for annual reconciliation purpose, because the customer has not accepted a reduction in GST. So I hope this clarifies, or if there is any follow up question to this, we can take that.
I think there's another question in chat box. I could see related to ITC from
Yeah.
where it says, where will show ITC of current year claimed in October 25? So again, as I mentioned, if there's a credit which has been taken for the first time in 24, when pertaining to 24-25 in 25-26, that credit will essentially be reported in 8C. First time means by any reason supplier has filed a late return, and it was appearing in 25-26 from April to October. Pertaining to 24-25, that credit will come only in table 8C of GSTR 9. Now suppose they take another scenario where the credit was there in 2B, but since the invoice has not been received and not been accounted, we happen to reverse and the other reversal in table 7H1 as we see here, and reclaim the credit during 25-26. Such reclaim credit of 24-25 will appear over in table 13, that is ITC financially availed in next financial year. So that is something that we can report in table 13, that is reclaim credit can be reported in table 13 here.
Should we move to the next question?
Yes, please, Sakshi.
So we have a question from Mr. Sandesh Shinde. His question is, in the case of multi-state registrations, suppose in one state there is a turnover of 5 crore and in the other state there is no turnover at all. Do we have to file GSTR 9 and 9C of such a state where there is no turnover?
So I think I'll take this question. If we see the provisions for filing annual returns, it refers to turnover of the legal entity as a whole, aggregate turnover in all the registrations, and from there we come to a conclusion that once my 2 crore limit, or say 5 crore limit, is crossing in any one state, I will have to file GSTR 9 and 9C, as may be applicable in all the other states which are registered under the same PAN, even though my turnover is nil in some other state. So I hope this answers.
Sure, ma'am. Next, we have a question from Ms. Shweta Agarwal. Her question is probably for you, Krita. What is the basis of trade discount which has been deducted from books revenue but not deductible in GST returns, and also same in case of Section 15 adjustments?
Sorry, can you just repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. The question is, what is the basis of trade discount which has been deducted from books revenue but not deductible in GST returns, and also same in case of Section 15 adjustments?
Okay. If I correctly understand this question, the question is more about, is this trade discount, which is deducted from books revenue, can be treated as an adjustment to turnover under section 15. So I think these are two different transactions. A trade discount is more of a commercial credit note which is issued by the company, on which there is no GST adjustment. So company may have, say, sold goods for 100 rupees, and later on they decide to reduce the price and pass on additional difference to the buyer, where they issue a trade discount for differential 5 rupees. So that is more of a volume discount. Generally trade discounts are in volume discounts when targets are achieved, while section 15 adjustments in GSTR 9C is covering only those adjustments to value of supply. Section 15 mainly governs the value of supply, of how am I supposed to value my supply. So if we see, generally when goods are sold, we even charge packing, freight, interest on delayed payment. So as per section 15, all these expenses, other expense which a supplier is charging, also gets added to the value of the supply of that particular commodity, and rate accordingly is applicable. So trade discount is an independent transaction, and section 15 adjustments, and generally in financials, what happened that many a times accounting is such that if I recover packing from the customer, it is many times credited to the expense ledger. So I may have a packing expense and a corresponding recovery from customer towards that packing expense. So that may not flow into my revenue GLs, the packing charges which I have collected, but it may have the effect of reducing my packing expense in the financials, and hence this adjustment in turnover on account of section 15 has been made a separate line item in table 5 of 9C.
Right. And
I
also,
hope
I
this
think
is somewhere near to the question that was asked.
so. Again, I think Krita, probably there was amendment in post-sale discount related conditions. Earlier, it was a post-sale discount, as you mentioned, volume discounts and all, which has not been pre-agreed in the agreement. The GST adjustment was not allowed. Now, considering the amendment which has been proposed in section 15(3), where post-sale discounts can be passed on, I think probably something the GST adjustment can be made here. So earlier, with respect to non-GST adjustment transactions, commercial credit notes or trade discount was relevant and has to be shown separately, because anyways your revenue get reduced in as per financials, but in returns actually the revenue is not getting reduced since GST liability cannot be adjusted. Therefore, to that extent, this reconciliation remain as a difference.
Correct.
Sakshi, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, am I audible now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so we have a next question from Mr. Gaurav Sethia. His question is, we have availed ITC available in 2A August month and not in 2B, and reverse later in September 3B. Do we need to pay interest, and if yes, how? Shall I repeat the question?
No worries. So what I've understood from the question is the credit has been availed based on 2A and not 2B, and therefore there's a lag of 1 month, August and September, and he want to understand whether interest is payable on the same. So now the structure of ITC, as we see in section 16(2) conditions, along with the rule 36 we read for availment of ITC, now it is compulsory to avail credit as per 2B. If by any chance, if you avail credit, since 2A is a dynamic statement and we have taken for any reason as per 2A, there could be interest implication for 1 month on the same. Now, since we have mandatorily supposed to follow a reconciliation with GSTR 2B. Krita, you have anything to add here or something?
No, I think you've covered.
So Sonam had earlier asked a question, where will we show ITC of current year claimed in October 2025? I think she is not very clear. So she's again dropped a question, that her question reframed is, I paid RCM pertaining to FY 23-24 in FY 24-25 through GSTR 3B. Should report or not in GSTR 9?
Akash, you would like to take it?
Yes, Krita. So again, so if any RCM credit of 23-24 has been paid in 24-25 3B, ideally it would come in your table 4 of GSTR 9, because the taxes on the same has been paid. Or one way could be that you remove that expense or liability from table 4. To that extent, your table 9 paid will be excess. It would appear as an excess tax payment, to the extent of RCM liability of 2324. So one way you can remove the liability from table 4, which is coming from GSTR 3B, or you can let it be there as it is. Therefore, there will not be any difference in table 9, that is tax payment table, or you can remove it and let have a tax paid as a higher on table 9 of GSTR 9.
Sure. Can we take the next question?
Yes.
Next question is from Rahul Taparia. If any invoice of 2324, it reflects in 2324 GSTR 2B, goods received in 2526. So we record purchase in 2526, claim in 2526. Did this ITC report in 6A1 and 6B because 6B is as per books?
Okay, I think there's some error with the question. I mean, the goods, so invoice was of 2324 and
Correct.
it was reflecting to be of 2425 and not 2526 because otherwise this will become ineligible after 30th November. So I believe it is 2425 the goods were received. So should we record purchase in 2526 and claim? So 2425, as we mentioned, we have table 6A1 separate where the invoices of 2324 credit has been availed during 2425. That credit has to be shown separately in table 6A1 and not 6B again because this is pertaining to 2324.
Okay. I think we can move to the next question. If
Again,
any
Sonam, I
credit
think is
note,
asking same question. Yes, Sonam, you can exclude the same from table 4G, and to that extent, your tax paid will be higher in table 9.
okay, sorry, I missed that. We can take Rahul's question. If any credit note related to exempt or non-GST supply not reported in GSTR 1, how to report in GSTR 9?
Credit note related to exempt or non-GST supply not reported on how to report in 9. Okay, so to this, I think as we discussed, if there is any transaction which is missed in monthly compliances, we should go ahead and report it in appropriate tables in GSTR 9. For credit notes also, even this year, it is an optional where transactions can be reported net of credit notes. So one way is if we have our gross level details at hand document level, we can report in respective tables. If we do not have, it can be reported as a net revenue in exempt or nil rated supply itself. So it should be included.
Thank you, Krita. I think there's one last question. Mutual fund sales exempted show in table 4 applicable or not?
Yeah, very relevant question, and I think it has been a question which is lingering for last 5-7 years since GST has been implemented. So if we see, there is a specific provision in section 17 where it says that 1% of my turnover of sale of securities will be deemed exempt turnover for common reversal purpose, common ITC reversal purpose. Now this and this comes from an explanation to rules 42-43 which provide for common credit reversal. In the because this is coming from a rule, and that too only for the purpose, if we see the language also, it says only for the purpose of that rule it is treated as a deemed exempt turnover, 1% of the total value. Because it is only for the purpose of those rules and for reversal purpose, it should not form anywhere a part of my table 4 or table 5, because this is revenue as per financials, and that is a fictional deemed revenue only for reversal purpose. So this should clearly not be part of table 4 or table 5 anywhere in GSTR 9. And in fact, one just maybe to summarize, and as we mentioned at the very beginning of this discussion, that this is a very crucial compliance. In fact, this year we are just looking forward that going forward in future, assessments will also be done at HSN from the HSN summary itself, because HSN summary, it gives the overall picture of the business of the company, what goods we are trading or selling, or what are the services that are being provided. So we have to be very careful on when we are reporting our HSN summary as well, because that becomes a very crucial data point for the department to scrutinize our business transactions. The moment in fact, we had a client who just reported one slump sale, income from slump sale in any other category in the using HSN of any other services not elsewhere classified, the residual HSN, which had now 18% is mapped to that HSN GST rate of 18%. But if we see from a GST law perspective, slump sale turnover is exempt. He immediately got a notice from department that you have reported certain turnover in that under that HSN, which otherwise carries an 18% rate, and you have shown a 0% GST against that code. So that code of HSN that we are using to report our supplies becomes very relevant, because it's a very direct data point for the department. The moment rates are inappropriate, so there has to be a real-time correlation between the HSN code adopted by the company and the corresponding applicable rate of GST. And during 99C, if we even find during our review and checks that certain code was wrongly adopted, so entire year the item master carried a wrong HSN code for a particular kind of supply, GSTR 9 is an opportunity. We should report that under correct HSN, so that there is no mismatch between the HSN code, the nature of supply, and the rate of GST applied on that particular type of supply. Else, this will become an open invitation to assessment notices based on our reportings done. So even HSN reporting can be updated when we are doing this annual compliance, and that is a very, very important factor which we get to review during these compliances.
Thank you so much, Krita, for such a detailed explanation. I guess there are no further questions.
There's one more question, Sakshi, in the chat box, which I just
Sorry.
question you
There's
had.
Snehal asking,
Hmm.
I have claimed ITC of FY 24-25 in 25-26, but after that I have reversed it in 3B. Then how to show the adjustment of GST and 09? Please explain.
See, Snehal, you can report the same in table 12. So credit which has been availed in 25-26, again, if it is a first time credit, it will come in 8C, availment of credit. If it is a reclaim, it will come in table 13. And ITC reversal being made in 25-26 can be showed in table 12 of GSTR 9, which says ITC of financial year reversed in next financial year. That can be shown over there. Then I think
Thank
one
you,
more
Akash
question
sir.
we have from Rahul is,
Yeah.
any invoice of 24-25 is in dispute with vendor. Shall ITC should be claimed in October 25 because the last day to claim ITC, and ITC left it in 2B of March 24. See, if it is March 24, then I believe already we have missed the bus. If it is March 25, then yes, 30th November is, as we know, is the last date. Credit can be claimed and can be reversed since payment has not been made to the vendor. And you can reclaim the same once you have make the payment to the vendor or when the dispute gets settled out. Just one more before we probably, I think, close the session. One last table I would like to just highlight is table 14 of GSTR 9C, which asks us to report expense-wise credit in this along with the value. While this table is again optional for this year as well, but just be mindful that in 14S, the number automatically flows from GSTR 9. So at some more time, it has been noted that 14T shows that amount as unreconciled. Since table is optional, we will not have any values in the above column from 14R, 14A to 14Q. And table 14S will have auto-populated number. In that case, there could be unreconciled number. So just please make sure we either report in 14Q any of the expense, the total ITC amount there, so that there's no unreconciled ITC. Or if we remove the table from 14S, we remove the number, even that is allowed. Since it is while it is auto-populated in case of an PDF format, but in Excel, you can remove this number 14S and report it. Because there have been couple of notices on this reason also, because 14T, you have seen, department have seen unreconciled credit. So that is, I think, one more point we should keep a note of.
Thank you, Akash sir. I think we don't have any further questions.
Yes, I think you can proceed.
So I would like to say that it was a highly insightful session delivered by our expert panelists. I trust each one of our audience gained practical clarity on annual GST reporting. A big thank you to our speakers, our organizing team at Affluence, and each participant, which spent a good 1.5 hours on their Saturday with us. For any further queries, you can reach us at contact@affluence.net.in. And for further sessions and upcoming webinars, you can stay connected with us through our LinkedIn page. Have a productive day. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you, Ms. Krita. Thank you, Akash sir, for this insightful session.
Thank you, in fact, Sakshi. Thank
Thank
you,
you,
the
Deepak.
wonderful audience, for listening to us patiently. And yes, it was indeed an interactive session. And thank you for the participation that the audience has shown in this session. That really helps us as well in bettering these sessions. Yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you all. Thank you so much.